thank you very much for being here, Dr. Klopman, and
Thank you.
great work that Baylor College of Medicine does
Thank
for
you
the
so
people
much.
of Texas.
Thank you.
You so much. All right. So we will now start with the University of Texas System Administration. Call up Chancellor Milliken for his presentation. So welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you,
Happy
Madam
to
Chairman.
have you here, and you're
Committee.
recognized.
I'm J.B. Milliken. I'm the Chancellor of the University of Texas System. I want to start, as the people before me have at this microphone, thanking you for the decisions that you have made to date in SB 1 and for your support over the years for higher education and the critical role it plays in preparing Texas students to succeed in treating patients and in helping Texas lead in the innovation economy. Today you will hear from our presidents and about their specific priorities, but I hope to give you just a little bit higher altitude picture as well as a few specific budget priorities for the UT system. Just to reacquaint you, the University of Texas System institutions educate over 260,000 students, more than 1/3 of all students in public institutions in Texas, and almost 100,000 more than the next largest Texas university system. Our students benefit from an outstanding teaching and learning experience where they're exposed to, and in many cases, participate in cutting-edge research. This includes development and use of now artificial intelligence, whether we like that idea or not. It is dominating industry and university research very quickly. Exciting new ways to treat cancer using the body's own response mechanisms, and many areas that that our presidents understand much better than I do. We have 7 medical schools at the University of Texas System, and so that means that we'll have 7 people in front of you who can respond to the question about GMEs available for our graduates of our medical schools. We have a large complex of health science centers, award over 60% of the medical degrees in Texas, saw 11 million patients last year. The statistic that really stuns me the most, the UT System's clinical operations are ranked 8th largest in the country in terms of the physicians, the number of physicians treating patients. So to achieve this, and as well as to educate students and conduct research, we employ more than 160,000 people, faculty, healthcare professionals, and other staff that make us one of the largest employers in the state of Texas. Our institution's research last year was $4.8 billion. And both total and federal research expenditures are the largest in the state and second largest in the country. This activity is key to continuing to build and sustain the innovation economy in Texas that is growing so rapidly. Recently, the UT system ranked 3rd in the world for patents, and I want to respond before Senator Nichols asks a question. I'll give you my elevator speech on the results of research at the UT system. A new invention is disclosed every 10 hours. A new patent is granted from University of Texas Intellectual Property every 1.5 days. And a new startup company is formed every 11 days. Last year, we received over $160 million in revenue from licensed technologies that is reinvested in research and innovation on our campuses. And we are taking great strides and involving people from the private sector, and some of our presidents can talk a little bit about that, in advisory groups who've been successful in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, of taking technology to the marketplace or to the bedside. As you know, according to the Texas Constitution, the UT System Administration is supported by the Available University Fund, which is made up of an annual distribution from the Permanent University Fund, These funds are available for a variety of purposes to the University of Texas system and Texas A&M system pursuant to the Texas Constitution. It was able to contribute to the groundbreaking Regents Promise Plus program, which is funded entirely without general revenue funds, and now provides at our academic institutions free tuition and mandatory fees for every Texas resident whose family has an adjusted gross income of $100,000 or less. This signature program in Texas, I think, sends a clear message to Texas families that higher education in this state is affordable. The general revenue received by the UT system administration supports specific programs which the legislature has prioritized: the Lone Star Stroke Initiative, the Texas Heart Institute, the Trauma Research and Combat Casualty Care Collaborative. The one other program that we support with funds from the legislature is the Multi-Institution Center in Laredo, which Senator Zaffarini has referred to earlier this morning. And thank you to the legislature for changing the funding in 2021 from UT Health Science Center San Antonio to the UT system, because what that has allowed us to do, and with the additional funding, is to bring 5 of our institutions into Laredo, 10th largest city in Texas, significantly underserved in healthcare and education. But now 5 of our institutions in Laredo to offer 9 different academic health programs, and we have several more planned for the next couple of years, including a significant investment in dementia research and in practice, which is supported by UT Health Science Center San Antonio Biggs Institute, a leading center in the world for dementia. Non-formula support, I know, is an issue that has come up, and our institutions are not unique, and non-formula support that comes to them, it comes for different purposes. In some cases, UT Austin, it supports research infrastructure, which has helped it to become one of the leading research universities in the world. At others, it's much more critical at some of our smaller institutions to their day-to-day operations, not unlike formula funds. And so I'm all for having greater clarity and transparency on how those funds are used. And I think each of our presidents could respond to that. But I do think they are essential to many of our institutions. And as the chair, I think, alluded to earlier, over time, it has become almost built into the base and is an essential part of their operating and would require significant adjustment if it were not funded. Research-based formula funding is especially key to UT Austin, the largest or the leading public research university in Texas, as well as our 4 Carnegie classified research 1 institutions in addition: UT Arlington, UT Dallas, UT El Paso, and San Antonio. We strongly support the continued investment through the Texas Research University Fund and the National Research Support Fund. We believe that Texas will have additional, I heard a reference earlier from one of my colleagues about AAU status. We believe Texas will have additional AAU universities. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder today, but I am almost certain that the next one will be in San Antonio, that the merged institutions in San Antonio, all at the time they open their door in August as one institution, will be well above the critical metrics of volume of research and people in doctoral programs, and so that sort of thing is one of the reasons that we're so excited about that development in San Antonio. Let's see, what else? I want to thank you for the Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium, which we manage, and I think with many other partners across Texas, but has been highly successful and hope that, that you will continue to support that. If there is a seat cap bill, I've heard some reference to it. Senator Creighton didn't tip the hand one way or the other, but just said he wasn't aware that it was in the plans for this year. If it is, I can assure you that our institutions have compelling priorities to try to address the growth of Texas, the growth of our institutions, which, by the way, there was talk earlier about the coming cliff, and I meet with and I have the state demographer meet with my team regularly because we're very interested in seeing. It's been an enormous difference and shift in Texas over the 7 years that I have been chancellor in the expectations for population in 2050 and what would make up that population. And there have been changes in the migration patterns, changes in the fertility rates, others. I'm not sure that any of us has a crystal ball on this. I can tell you that right now we are still seeing significant growth, and we will continue to. I would say half a dozen of our institutions of the 14 have record enrollments this year. The system itself, even without Stephen F. Austin's numbers in place, is at a record level in terms of enrollments. And so we're seeing continued growth. And I would argue that despite my belief that there is an enormous need for additional trades education and apprenticeships and the kind of career education that we provide in our community colleges in Texas, I still think we are going to need more four-year graduates, and we are underperforming nationally in that space. So I think that we ought to be continuing to invest in that. So on behalf of all of us at the UT system, of whom you'll hear from many after me, much smarter representatives, I thank you. Thank you for your dedication and for your support of higher education in the state of Texas, and I'm pleased to respond to any questions or receive any advice that you may have.
Thank you, Chancellor. Senator Zaffarini?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chancellor, thank you so much for talking about the change in San Antonio. It relates to one of my questions, which I raised for another chancellor earlier, and that is, what is the system doing to ensure that the universities within that system that are classified as emerging research universities can develop into the classification of research universities? Of the 8 that are classified as emerging research universities today, 4 are UT institutions.
Yeah, our board initiated a new program in the aftermath of the last legislative session when significant additional funding was provided for 4 other emerging research universities. Our board instituted a new program to provide significant additional funding to our 4 institutions in that category. And it's millions and millions of dollars each to hire new research faculty and to grow their infrastructure. And we will continue to do that. But we made a significant investment in that in the last year.
And those are UT Arlington, UT Dallas, UT El Paso, and UT San Antonio.
Yes, they are.
Therefore, what would it cost, or what will it cost, to help them transform into research universities?
Well, they are all research universities, and they're all
I'm talking
Carnegie
about in the
One
category
research.
with these criteria that the coordinating board has.
They're all Carnegie Research One universities, and but often we refer to AAU eligible or say. I mean, first of all, just to set the record, AAU is a club of universities. You don't just achieve a benchmark and then you are automatically there. You're invited to join. And for years, the numbers of public universities was depressed because it always was half public and half private. And there were not enough private universities who were coming anywhere near the level of research funding. I mean, once you get past the Ivy Pluses and some others, you don't have public university or private universities with that level of research. So they suppressed the number of publics. So anyway, I'm sorry for the unnecessary tutorial, but you're not automatically an AAU. And so I like to think of it as AAU level or quality or that kind of thing. It will require significant growth in research expenditures. That's number one. I mean, that if you look at any of the benchmarks that the AAU looks at or the way research universities compare. And so we're at, I'll call it 150 million on average at those 4 places. That needs to be more than double. And the reason that I am so certain that in San Antonio we will have one is because of UTSA at roughly that level, plus UT Health Science Center San Antonio, which is approaching 400 million.
Thank you. Excuse me. A few sessions ago, this committee heard testimony that for every dollar we invest in higher education research, we have an economic multiplier of $18, and that at UT Austin it was 25. Do you have current figures regarding the return on investment or economic multipliers?
I like that one, but I don't have anything on the top of my head that's more current, but that kind of thing is produced nationally quite a bit. I do not know if there's a more current one for Texas, but I'm happy to look into that.
Thank you so much. Could you explain to the committee why you are focusing on the Laredo Center for Education and Research? We have made more progress in the last 4 years than we had in the first 20 years of that institution.
I had a
Been
good
highly
advisor.
neglected. And I want you to please tell the committee why this funding is so important.
I think it was the first meeting I had in this complex when I arrived was with Senator Zaffirini, and I heard for about an hour about the center in Laredo.
No, she wouldn't do that.
But then I visited. 2 hours. Yeah, and I looked at the data, and it is the 10th largest city in Texas. It is the largest port in North America, land-based or coastal. It is dramatically underserved in higher education and in healthcare, which certainly in healthcare, I'm sure was the reason behind the original action by the legislature 20-some years ago to put it in place. So I talked to the Board of Regents about it, and they all agreed this is already a place where we have an obligation. We've been charged by the legislature, and we're underperforming. And I don't blame anybody for that. It wasn't a priority. It is a priority now, and that's why we have 5 institutions there. That's why we have I can't remember the new acronym, I'm going to call it a TRB proposal for Laredo, because it's growing. And our programs there are much appreciated by the people. Every time I come to Laredo, I can tell that they're much appreciated by the population there. One thing we've done in Laredo, which I'll also say, and I'm sorry to be over-answering, but we are the largest partner with Google and Coursera in the world in offering micro-credentials, these kind of badges on skills-based programs like supply chain management, project management, coding, et cetera, so that people can bolt these on to an undergraduate degree, or they can get them, Senator Betancourt, without a college degree. And you can get an entry-level job in cybersecurity with one of these micro-credentials. Anyway, we now offer them free to all of our undergraduates at the UT system, and we offer them free to our alumni. This is a deal that we've cut with Google and Coursera. We've now offered them in Laredo to people in the community because we think that we need to sort of jumpstart our educational activities there. It's fine that we have this center and we're going to grow it, but this is a way to get to the existing population, which has low education attainment rates, and provide a bump for them in the marketplace, we hope.
Thank you. Texas Tech provided some excellent testimony earlier and indicated that they have the only health science center along the 1,250-mile border region. Of course, we have a medical school now in the valley. We have the Education and Research Center for UT in Laredo. Are there any plans to collaborate among those 3 institutions and perhaps more to ensure that we can cover the entire 1,250-mile Texas-Mexico border?
I wondered, as I thought you did, what happened to Rio Grande Valley in that discussion, but Rio Grande Valley, RGV, is one of the participants in Laredo today and has plans for more programs there. So we're working closely with Texas Tech particularly their health science center in the Permian, and we will continue that. But at Laredo, I don't know of any current plans to have Texas Tech involved. We'd certainly welcome them, but
But I'm talking about the entire region beyond those 3 cities.
well, I know that when President Wilson is here, can talk about the work that they're doing with Texas Tech in El Paso, but I'm not aware of any work in the region beyond what President Bailey can talk about they're doing at RGV and President Wilson at El Paso.
That would be a good conversation to have, Chancellor. Thank you so much.
I will
Thank you for
take
your
that up.
excellent
Somebody
work.
that's taking notes for me will remind me of this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam.
Senator Nichols?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, first of all, for a great presentation. Since you already gave the stats on the intellectual property, I'm not gonna ask any questions. So you're really up on it, so I appreciate that. I've got a UT graduate behind me here, staff in the committee. It's my legislative director. She doesn't have a mic, so I know she's glowing because the UT's up on board right now. The question I had, or really a comment, has to do with a few years ago in 2022, after the Uvalde school shooting, the lieutenant governor put together a special committee on school safety. A number of those people who serve on that committee are on this panel. And we went through days of hearings, hearing all types of things, and a lot of recommendations were made. We've been implementing those, but one of those had to do, and it was much more difficult, was the creation and implementation of this child consortium of mental health thing, which y'all run. At the time of the shooting, one of the things that amazed me was they touched on it in some of the early news reports, but at that point in time, the Uvalde school district was not part of it because they had not expanded. There was a limitation on how fast you could expand. Part of it was money. A lot of it had to do with the organizational structure and the number of, or the shortage of mental health professionals that you can access. There's only so many. And we know that we're short. And so, as I understand it, at the time that was, y'all were at about 300 of our approximately 1,100 school districts were participating in a consortium. And I just got the update that we're up to about 900 of our almost 1,100 school districts are participating. So that, to me, with the restriction of the number of people you had to work with, and I'm talking about mentally trained professionals, that's pretty amazing in just a very few years. And so I wanted to compliment y'all on that. And I know y'all are working to get as many of the others implemented as possible, but it was an issue that came up that, you know, we put a lot of money the state has in other, what do you call it, barriers, locks, fences, gating, procedures, enforcement, inspections, all kinds of things. But the one thing that touched me at those hearings was that if we could catch these children at an earlier age that are having problems, not just identify them, but actually get them some real help and treatment, assuming the parents would agree to it, then we might be able to solve a lot of other problems as these children move through the system. And so anyway, I just wanted to, you touched on it. I wanted to emphasize how important I think it is and what a great job y'all have done. And we still have more to finish.
Thank you,
And
Senator. I
comments.
couldn't agree more. I think it was an important need that the legislature recognized, and I want to give a shout out to Dr. David Lakey, who is in the lead role managing that, but I think we have about 30 partners across the state, and so I appreciate the compliment, but it's the work of a lot of our partners who are really invested in this as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That is all the questions for you, Chancellor. Again, thank you for being here. Thanks. Oops, Senator Betcourt.
Thank you.
You woke up.
No, I just as the only Aggie in residence here.
Try to be nice. if
I
you
was
can.
just waiting for all my Texas X's to get through before somebody asked a tough question. Are you ready?
What was the score? And the
Yeah, that's right. I know nothing of that game, that's for sure. Congratulations, by the way. Too bad you didn't go number one. You were close. Chancellor Mitchell was in, and there was three trends that I'm tracking, I think, that he brought up. If you listened, I can, just briefly, we've got declining numbers of 18-year-olds. We've got declining number of kids that want to go to college, and we've got a mix of students that we're effectively got a net migration out of college-age students in Texas. But those three challenges, how are you going to solve them, or how do you work with those three, Chancellor?
Well, as I don't want to bore people by repeating this, but as I work with the demographer, I've seen an enormous amount of change. So I'm not sure that these are certain. We've seen changes in migration and interestingly, significant changes in fertility rates. So right now we have a projection about what Texas population is going to look like. I think, as I mentioned, I think we're underperforming on educational attainment in Texas, and we're certainly underperforming if you look at demographic groups compared to each other. We have gaps in the African American population and the Hispanic population in Texas in terms of the educational attainment rate compared to the white or Asian population. So I think those are things that we need to tackle. I think there will always be a need for more four-year degree recipients, and as I said, I think we're underperforming. I think there's room for us to grow there. I'm a huge supporter, as I mentioned, of technical training at our community colleges, and I think that's a great opportunity for many people. And I'm also a great proponent for these kind of micro-credentials and badging that get people skills ready for jobs. I was at a meeting with a group of university presidents, and I talked about this program a few years ago, and one of them looked at me like I had two heads and said, "You're undercutting our economic model." And I said, well, it's no doubt to me why people don't have as much confidence in higher education anymore if you're more worried about your economic model than you are about how you serve the population of people in your state. Those are all things that we're concerned of. We'll look to our neighbors in the Big Ten and the Northeast who've been worried about the declining number of 18-year-olds for a lot longer than we have, and that's why they all have recruitment shops open in Texas to try to take our students. I think one of the ways that we keep more, I look at some of the students who leave Texas, and I think one of the ways that we will keep more students is if a student wants to be at a premier research university, an AAU level university, and they can't get into UT Austin or A&M, I think right now we're losing too many of those students. And so I think the effort that the legislature has put in place to take these 8 institutions and raise them to that level is going to be part of how we meet that challenge. There's no way we should be as far behind California as we are. We're going to be bigger than California, no matter which of the demographers' estimates you look at. And we have far fewer. We have 3 AAU universities. They have 11 or something like that. So anyway, I think that's one of the ways we're going to retain our most talented students in Texas. You think recruitment shops? I do strongly agree with your micro-credential situation because we don't really care what the solution is as long as it leads to economic success for the individual student, aka the worker of tomorrow or the business owner, et cetera. Now you made a comment about trying to basically have more premier institutions, but I'm just an Aggie, but with the fertility rates having declined, that's kind of like 18 years in the rearview mirror. So that trend seems to be somewhat inevitable. So I guess, James, what I'm challenging you on this one is you kind of mentioned you weren't sure that those changes are coming, but obviously some cliff is coming. The question is how deep it is or how tall it is.
would be a better term. So we're going to have to, and that cliff's going to last at least a decade. Now, unless we can reverse it with, some type of attractive effects, I guess is the best way to describe it. Am I missing something?
I don't think you're missing something. Maybe I'm not as convinced as you are of the level of precision of the estimates about where we will be in 10, 20 years from now. So even if I take your projections as a given, I think the effort to increase the research and the quality of those 8 institutions I mentioned is still an imperative for the state of Texas and the legislature.
All right, well, that's going to be the big open debate, because that's pretty much the biggest question in higher ed is what, basically, how many students are coming, because that's the one change in what has been a wealth of riches in Texas. So thank you.
So maybe I'm not understanding the math, but Chancellor, what's the acceptance rate now at UT? I know it's gone down, so it's like 8%. Is it that low? Of kids who apply. I mean, you had a record applications this year, right?
President Hartzell can answer this with much more precision than I can, but I do know that it has
10%.
now moved to automatic acceptances of no more than the top 5% of your high school class just because of the demand.
And he held up 10%. So my point is, if we have less kids, they'll just more will be able to get in. But you're never going to have enough space for as many that want to go to UT. It looks like to me, but.
Well, we do know that a number of those 96,000 students last year that applied to be in the freshman class at UT, a number of them did not come to Texas or left Texas to go to other places.
Sure.
And I can't remember which part of the discussion was that. Maybe it was Senator Colkhorst about the attraction of football Saturdays and that kind of thing. I think we lose, in my mind, way too many students to Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi.
LSU.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything about LSU.
Well, they're smart, you see? It's interesting, but yeah, I think kids are going to want to go to UT for a long time to come. And
I think we want to keep more of our Texas students in the state if we can at any cost.
And that's really the point, because it's the capacity of the overall system. When you look at the flagship institutions, you're going to have always had that positive ratio. But then when you go out of that flagship institution, the question is happens to the capacity of the entire system in the state. That was really what I was asking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hinojosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've always advocated for the UT system to invest in more funding for our regional universities. The UT in Austin is capped pretty much as to the number of students who apply, but we wouldn't lose as many students to other states if we invested more on our regional universities and build up their attraction, not only the different degrees they offer, but even also football teams, with now UT-IGB starting one in 2025. So to me, that's very important. Not only from us in the legislature, increasing funding for our universities that are not UT Austin or A&M, but also to have the UT system itself with the amount of funding and resources you have available from the PUF fund and other sources. And that will help to stem some of the students that leave Texas that do not get accepted at UT Austin or Texas A&M.
I agree with you, Senator, and I think if you looked at how our board has made spending decisions over the last few years and the investments in research, in Promise Plus, that I can tell you is making a significant impact on enrollments right now at a number of our universities, and in other areas where I don't know what the most recent number is, 30 or 40 million taken off of the books of those regional campuses and done centrally and financed centrally. So there's a significant investment going on in them now. And to your point, I think RGV starts its football next fall, so maybe people will be coming for the Saturdays.
Well, come and join us on the tailgate. Thank you, Madam
We
Chair.
might do that. All right. Senator West.
As a follow-up, when you begin to look at like TCU as an example, it became prominent as a result of the rise of their football program. Is football one of the main recruiters, motivators for students to want to attend their university?
Not at UT Dallas.
Not at UT
or
Dallas, probably
UT
Chester,
Arlington.
Dallas.
You know, that's what people tell me about some of the students we lose to out-of-state schools, for instance, that don't come to UT Austin because they want that experience. I don't know how widespread that is. I mean, we're growing significantly at places that don't have football, so I'm not sure. I hope not. I hope it's the quality of education and the
quality of
and
education
the
plus
value
activity.
proposition, which we have a great value proposition in Texas because of all of you, and the fact that we have kept tuition below the national average, and we're providing a lot of scholarship funds. And so I hope that's where people are making those decisions.
There's no study that can define it one way or the other in terms of what.
You know, there have been studies over the
motivating
years that I've seen.
factors
I don't put a lot of weight in them, but.
Okay. We'll leave it at that.
There was a study a few years ago by the Knight Commission, chaired by Ted Hesburgh, the longtime president of Notre Dame, and Bill Friday, the longtime president of the University of North Carolina. And their conclusion was that success in athletics did not affect fundraising success. I don't know too many people that
I'm not sure.
that would resonate with. So
Yeah, okay. Enough said.
I've said on that one, right.
Yeah, that wasn't a good one. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Senator Creighton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chancellor, you mentioned a couple of times the Promise Plus program earlier in your remarks. I was just hoping you could remind the committee when we're talking about assisting families who make less than $100,000 a year, is that a complete reprieve from the cost of tuition, or is it the delta? Is it the difference between what they could qualify for in student loans, and then if that does not cover the entire cost of their tuition, Promise Plus for those families would help with that amount?
yeah, thank you, Senator. It is the delta. It's the last in dollars, but it doesn't include loans. So it's the delta on top of Pell Grants at the federal level, Texas state grants, other grants that the students might get. Then it makes up the difference for tuition and mandatory fees.
Between the grant allocation and cost of the tuition?
Right.
Not
So-
tied to student loans. So we've heard, just different commentary and different committee hearings, and a different perception of how that plan, the metrics work. So it's helpful to us to understand that.
Just for one more point to illustrate this. So if you're at the lower end of income, you're going to get Pell Grant funds as more, and sort of below, I don't know what the cutoff now is, $55,000, $60,000 adjusted gross income. So you're going to get Pell Grant. If you're at the higher end of that 100,000, you're not going to get a Pell Grant. You might get some other grants. So the program was designed to build on something that we thought was a failing, which was if you're at the lowest level of income, it's great that there's the support there. But if you move up a little bit, then the support goes away, no Pell Grant funding. And so still pretty significant burden for a working family to send a child to college at that level. And so this is designed to meet that sort of the more of the middle class population that wasn't receiving any aid in Texas. And the other thing that we believe is that, whether it's the most precisely tuned financial aid policy or not, it sends a strong message if you can say, if you're at 100,000 adjusted gross income or less, you're not going to pay tuition here. It's a huge message, we think, to Texas families.
That makes sense as well. I appreciate the clarification, and there's just been quite a bit of discussion about that, and also requests from families to understand it better. So as those come into our office, I wanted to make sure that we were consistent on it. You mentioned CCAPs. Will they'll be, are you anticipating a formal presentation or submittal to request something tied to the TRB CCAP capital construction effort?
I think our approach every other year is to try to be diplomatic and respectful of the legislature's interest in that, but it's also to have a project available of the highest priority at every one of our institutions, and they certainly have that and would welcome support for those much needed projects.
Yeah, I appreciate the answer. If there are previous submittals or requests that did not come to fruition, they were not able to be accomplished because of our efforts a couple of sessions ago, please help us understand that, whether we have a CCAP bill this session or not. It's helpful to understand what we believe we've accomplished and what we actually have accomplished as far as how the results of that last effort panned out. I think that's important for the members to understand what did we do with that prior CCAP bill and where did those efforts end up. So that's very helpful. With my last point and question I had is, we'll have requests among all the systems for formula increases, exceptional item requests, special projects, those types of budget priorities coming in, especially as we begin our Article 3 working groups. It's important to our Article 3 working group, and also I know I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I visit with them quite a bit about this, just to understand how our university systems are working to find efficiencies and areas in which they can save within their own current budgets, so that as we're working on increases, we're also seeing an efficiency standard and best practices, so that we understand we're all working together towards the same goal, to build and to grow and to serve and to meet capacity and future strategies and need, but also that we're doing a very good job at finding efficiencies in ways that as the system continues to quickly evolve, it's often very clear that some of those old priorities and strategies that were being funded are archaic or obsolete or just no longer efficient and tied to the goals of the future. So if we could understand that better as a committee on finance, we could also be bold in our efforts to reinvest and redeploy towards that new vision and that new horizon, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Can you help us?
I completely agree with you, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
Thank you.
with that.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Okay, that really is all the questions now.
Thank
you,
you.
Chancellor.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
being here. Okay, we're going to start with our presidents.